Well, we've discussed that the evidence suggests there are prosecutable war crimes that have occurred in Ukraine. Joining me now to discuss how the U.S. should respond going forward is Congressman Pat Fallon. He is among a congressional delegation that traveled recently to Eastern Europe. He is a member of the Committee on Armed Services and represents Texas' 4th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Tony, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
First, tell us about your recent trip to Eastern Europe. What did you see? What did you learn while you were in the region?
Well, Tony, I'm very glad I went. We went to Poland, Romania, and Moldova, and did cross into the Ukraine just on the frontier for about 30 minutes and got to talk to some Ukrainian frontier officials. But it was very eye-opening in so much as on several fronts, one of which was on the humanitarian front. There are 10 million Ukrainians that have been displaced, 6 million within Ukraine, and 4 million have left. 2 million of them are in Poland. 2 million, Tony. That's 5% of the entire population of Poland. And yet there are no major refugee camps or centers because the Polish people have opened up their homes to those 2 million, largely women and children, mostly. And Romania, the same thing, not to the extent in Poland, but in Moldova, a tiny country, one of Europe's poorest, if not the poorest country, not a NATO country, Moldova, but they have processed 400,000 refugees from Ukraine. And there are also no major refugee camps in Moldova. And so the hearts of the people in those countries are huge. And particularly with Poland and Romania, very appreciative that they're in NATO, considering what they're seeing on their eastern borders.
That generosity, hospitality can only go so far. As you say, 5% of the population. We've seen this in the Middle East after previous wars where we've had countries that have, like Jordan, taken in many, many refugees, and at some point it becomes a challenge for those countries, their economies. Given what we know now and the evidence that's being presented, what are the next steps in terms of both humanitarian and military aid to Ukraine?
Yeah, we have to continue to, the United States, the West, the NATO alliance has to provide the Ukraine with the weapons that they need to win this fight. And we've been calling in fact, we signed a letter, and I just asked Secretary Austin about it today in a committee hearing. We signed a letter back in November with Ranking Member Rogers on Armed Services in the House and Ranking Member Inhofe in the Senate to encourage and beseech and plead Mr. Biden to send as much asymmetrical and military assistance as possible back in November. Unfortunately, the administration dragged their feet. So where do we go now? The Ukrainians have given us a list of the things that they'd like to have in their possession, if at all possible. One, kind of on top of that list is the S-300, which is an SAM, a surface-to-air missile system that's very effective, almost as effective as our Patriot system. Some of our Eastern European allies have those, and we would like to backfill them with the Patriots. But we also need to continue to give them the Javelins and the Stingers, but also Switchblade drones that can loiter in the air and then deliver munitions very accurately deep into enemy territory. That's one of the reasons why the Russians were, pretty much stopped in their tracks north and west of Kiev. They couldn't encircle it because, first of all, the will of the Ukrainian people and their military has been extraordinarily strong. They have a high morale. But as you just mentioned, Tony, this cannot go on forever. So we need to also provide them with economic assistance and humanitarian assistance as well.
Congressman, we're up against the break, like 30 seconds. You've been very outspoken about rescinding Title 42 that has been used to stem the tide at the border. Democrats now coming on board saying, yeah, we need to keep that in place. But is it enough to see this administration reverse course? Do you think they'll reverse course, or are they going to rescind Title 42?
Yeah, I think they'll rescind it, Tony. Unfortunately, what Joe Biden's administration has proven is they take a left turn at every given opportunity. And you see the Democrats knowing that it's already a catastrophe. I don't know what the next superlative is that we use beyond catastrophe, but that's what we're looking at if we rescind Title 42.
All right, Congressman Pat Fallon, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony. God bless you.